Welcome in, everybody. Share, share, share. If you're able to see this, share it like crazy. A lot of these platforms are very clearly trying to hide anything that I bring you. So right off the bat, try and share this widely so we can get more eyes on it. I am Christy Lee, and this is Christy Lee TV, and I have another interview today. We are getting back to talking about the things that matter to us individually. There is so much going on in this news cycle, from objects in the skies to what's happening in East Palestine, in Ohio with that environmental disaster, which is very personal to the folks there and should be getting more coverage, to, sprinkled in more about the Ukraine situation. But ultimately, as we're soaking in all of these different things that are happening around the world, sometimes the best change and action we can take is what is happening in our personal lives, protecting our safety, protecting our wealth, our futures. And there's a lot happening there too. So my guest today is Dr. Kirk Elliot. KirkElliottPhD.com is where you can find him. And he has a fascinating backstory. And I'm not even going to try and summarize it. I'm going to actually just bring him in. Here he is, Dr. Kirk Elliot. As I learn more about you, I love your story, being that I was a longtime news anchor. Part of why you get into that business is you are curious and you like telling people's stories, and yours is just so fascinating because here you are, a guy that was kind of doing this stuff. And you said that you were interested, you were seeing kind of nerds on TV in your mind, like Jim Cramer going crazy. And you're like, if they can do it and they can talk about this stuff, I want to too. So just bring me from the beginning, how you got into finances and caring about preserving people's livelihoods.
Yeah, well, it's so great to be with you again, Christy. I mean, just awesome to speak to people of like mind, right? So yeah, I've been doing this as a wealth manager for about 29 years, which is why I kind of have gray hair in my beard, right? but way back in the day, I started in like 1994. I was just a traditional stockbroker kind of a guy. Did seminars for retirees in wealth management. And the firm that I worked for, very much just a paper-based firm like Merrill Lynch or Schwab or, any of the places you see today, right? But way back then, and I would say about 1998 or so, I started to send a few of my clients over to a company that actually specialized in silver coins and bars, right? Just physical gold and silver. Well, in the industry, and you're very familiar with the financial industry as well, there's a rule called selling away, where if you don't offer it, right, then you can't sell it. You can't even make the recommendation that people go look someplace else, because your compliance officer will come and say, hey, can't do that. You're selling away. It's like, wait a second. I'm not selling anything. You don't know what the word selling means. I'm just telling a few of my clients that they should maybe put 5% of their assets into gold at the time. They said, well, you can't do it. Our compliance office hasn't gone through it. So they basically gave me a cease and desist. It's like, okay. I mean, I wasn't making any money on it because we didn't sell it, right? And so you're precluded from doing that. But so anyways, here's a couple of things about me is, number one, I'm always going to do what's right for the client. And number two, I have to honor the firm that I'm working for. You have to have both. And if you can't have both, then it's just not going to work. So you know what I did? I quit. So that's one of those conversations you go home and say, hey, wife, I quit. Right? It's like, what? So, but here's the thing. God's my provider, not people. And that's what we always have to keep in mind is they're going to have their own rules because they're paper-based companies and they want to control all the capital, all the assets, and keep them in-house. So at that point, I called this firm that I was, just recommending that people call, and ended up working for them. Fell in love with the place. It was small town, rural Colorado, but they were a very large metals firm nationwide. So I get there, and I was supposed to inherit a book of business. So, like any advisor, it's like, okay, you're going to get some of their clients and whatever. The book of business was a phone book. It's like 50. What phone book?
Like what you see like in the movies, right?
It just is. It's like a boiler room mentality. Yeah, just cold call. And so this is what I did. 250 phone calls a day for like 3 years. It's like, oh, this is the But when you have a dream and you're passionate about it and you're good at it, it's like, okay, you jump over any hurdles that come up in life because this is what you're called and gifted, anointed to do. However, watching TV, watching like CNBC and Jim Cramer's just like shouting from the rooftops because that's his style, right? It's like, wait a second, people are listening to this guy and all he's doing is yelling all the time.
I remember, because you touched upon this, I worked as a stockbroker in a family business for a while, and we would always have this screen up with different money shows, we'll say, Bloomberg or CNBC, and sometimes Kramer would come on when we would be in the office, and we would just be like, "What is he on? How many? Like, does he just drink like a bunch of coffee? Like, I mean, clearly that's his shtick, but it was also a running joke because we would talk about how, like, okay, whatever he's talking about or recommending, we need to make sure we're doing the opposite.
The opposite. He actually kind of got in trouble for that a while back, right? But it's one of those weird things. It's like, how can people are listening to him because he's on TV?
Yeah.
Right. That brings that automatic credibility and reputation to a large extent.
Not so much anymore.
No, not anymore. But back in the day,
knows that everything's opposite than when they're telling you on TV now. I mean, they certainly aren't doing anything for their credibility, but go on.
Well, and it was probably the same back then. Really, some things just don't change, but it didn't have that perception at the time. So here's like, all right, how can I get on TV? So it's like, think outside the box kind of a guy. It's like nobody on TV has PhD, except you're truly, like you mentioned, the boring Harvard nerds that come on and talk about policy and they're putting everyone to sleep in the first 30 seconds. It's like, all right, I'm a little more exciting than that. So I got a PhD in public policy and administration, focusing on monetary economics. I developed a new methodology for measuring inflation for the BLS and central banks because the way that they do it is wrong. Right. So it took me like 7 years, but I got it. Right. And then after that, because I don't know, maybe I got a few screws loose, but I thought if one is good, two might be better. So I got a second PhD in theology. And it's like, Kirk, how do economics and theology blend? It's like, well, this is the philosophy of me, and the philosophy of our company is people over profit. Right. This is how you can have both of those. It's like, if you focus on people, profit comes. If you focus on profit, people leave. I don't care if you're a politician or a business owner or anything, that philosophy will hold true. So after that, it's like, okay, Huckabee was interviewing me. I was on Daystar TBN, produced a documentary, Salem Radio. I mean, it was like impact and influence explosion, right? And it's not because I was any different. They're smarter than anybody. It's just different, right? I had PhDs that nobody else did. So it got me on TV. But that was the genesis of our firm and how we started. And so, fast forward to today, one of the fastest growing firms in the industry, huge. I mean, we're very blessed. We're very blessed, but it's because of our philosophy of focusing on people and the relationship model that comes with that. Because here's the thing, Christy, when people call, they'll see me on a show like this or maybe they didn't, maybe they just, Googled me and found me on the internet, whatever. They call and you know what? Everybody, and this is not even close to an exaggeration. It's everybody that calls is gripped with fear because you're seeing news about spy balloons being shot out of the sky. There's war in Russia. There's earthquakes in Turkey. There's all this stuff going on. You've got central bank digital currency and what does that mean? It's a loss of privacy. Is it the mark of the beast? I mean, literally, people's minds are everywhere. And then you've got the economic collapse, the inflationary pressures, interest rates are going through the moon and people can't afford to pay their bills. And it's like our retirements are eroding. There's nothing that we can do about it. And policies are causing us, we can't change politics. And so they're gripped with fear. And fear does one of two things, Christy. It does either it puts your head in the sand like an ostrich in a windstorm, waiting for the storm to ride out, pop back up, and you hope it's gone. So you just ignore the issue, or it causes you to make the wrong decision. That's the two things that fear does. And so
it's amazing just how powerful just emotion is, just even in how the market plays out. I mean, that's constantly how we hear about how emotion, I mean, that's even in the tests, how fear and emotion can drive market decisions and action, Yeah.
Well, it's human psychology, right? So So, I mean, we could go way back to, oh, Weimar Republic, Germany, after World War One. Germany was the big kid on the block. They were the America of the time, right? They had a vibrant arts district, stock market was booming, big military. The German military bombed the living daylights out of everybody in World War One, right? And so, Treaty of Versailles came in. And what did it say? It said, hey, you've got to repay your war debts, Germany. It's like, what? We can't afford. I thought we won this thing, right? So, no, international treaty caused them to do that. So what did they do? They abandoned the gold standard. So they took gold backing away from their currency, which allowed them to print the mark without discretion, just printed it like there was no tomorrow. That caused one of the worst hyperinflations in world history. Like, we're talking billions of percent, and billions with a B. Mommies and daddies couldn't afford to feed their babies. They had to be paid in wheelbarrows full of cash twice a day, or else a loaf of bread would have doubled in price from lunch to dinner time, right? So people were living under this fear and under this they couldn't afford to live. And so then what? Then this is when Hitler came to power, and he campaigned on this campaign slogan of hope and change. Sound familiar? kind of does.
Yeah.
But that's what he did. And you know what? People willingly gave away their freedoms in exchange for perceived security and peace. It's like, really, Hitler, you can fix it? Yeah, I'll fix it. Just vote for me, right? So they willingly voted in one of the worst dictators to ever live in the history of the world. And he didn't have to hold a gun to their head and say, vote for me or else. They willingly brought him in. So this is human nature. Fear causes you to do things that aren't rational in exchange for perceived peace and security. And as we're living in this world today, I don't live with a spirit of fear, right? I don't. But this is the concern that I have for America is we've got these problems, economic problems, geopolitical problems. We've got a new currency system that's emerging. You've got conflict everywhere. And if you look back to just a few weeks ago, Klaus Schwab, head of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, said 2023 was going to be a year of polycrisis. Saying, okay, I've never heard the word polycrisis before, and I've got a PhD, right? So, but I know how to put a compound word together. Poly means many, and crisis means crisis, right? It's like, okay, so there you go. So they're actually bragging about this is going to be a year of so many crises, and how in the world could anybody want to give up their currency in exchange for a central bank digital currency, which is like spyware on your bank account, right? The ability, if they don't like your digital social profile, to actually cut you off from buying or selling. This is what this is all about. How could people ever vote for that? Well, they don't actually have to vote, but they don't even have to like it, but they will accept it if there's so much crisis, there's so much problems. They'll say, come in like a knight on a shiny white horse and come in and save the day, right? And this is how they get what they want, is you kick the other big kid out of the sandbox. You create a crisis that's so bad that something that 6 months ago people wouldn't have wanted your solution, but now it makes sense, right? That's very Hegelian philosophy, right? Mm-hmm. You want to get something passed, well, create a crisis that's so bad that people will now want what you've got, and then boom.
Done. Who is it that said, I don't know if either of us can remember this, but who is it said that never let a crisis go to waste? I forget. I know that they were.
It was either, I think it was Rahm Emanuel, one of Clinton's advisors.
Okay.
And I mean, they don't. Right?
They're
not letting a good crisis go to waste today. But you know what? Neither should we. Right? There is a crisis. Well, don't let it go to waste. Don't let that erode everything you've worked hard to accumulate. Right? Do something about it. Right? Because for every problem, there's an opportunity. For every crisis, there is a light at the end of that tunnel. You just have to know where to find it. And because none of us were created to just survive, Christy. None of us. We were created to thrive. And we're given wisdom and knowledge and intuition and discernment to figure things out. And once you identify the trend and the forces that cause that trend to actually go up or down, well, then we can be in the right place at the right time. For example, are stocks bad? Well, they're toxic today, but are they always bad? Well, no. During the Trump years, during the Reagan years, both of those presidents had very similar economic policies, which were lowering taxes, lowering interest rates, and creating jobs. Well, when you have that, people are going to spend money. When people spend money, corporate revenues go up. When that happens, stocks go through the roof, right? When interest rates go up, the value of bonds comes down. When interest rates go down, the value of bonds goes up. So from 1983 until just about 8 months ago, interest rates were coming down for almost 40 years. That meant bonds were amazing. But now as interest rates rise, the value of bonds comes down. Okay, that stinks, right? See, but you fast forward to today, from the Reagan years or the Trump years, we've got a presidential administration and a Congress that basically says, hey, we're going to raise taxes. We're going to raise interest rates to slow down the inflation that we're creating by printing money like there's no tomorrow to fund every stimulus under the sun. Oh, and by the way, instead of creating jobs, we're going to pay people to stay home during COVID, right? Every policy is exactly the opposite of what causes economic growth. So therefore, you're not going to have economic growth. You're going to have economic shrinkage. That's when you don't want to invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, right? You want to wait. You want to wait until we have a change in presidency, change in Congress that brings back economic policies that cause growth, which would be lowering taxes, lowering interest rates, and creating jobs. Until then, the normal traditional asset classes that we're all used to and have been used to for years are not going to do well. So like your family, in the financial services industry, for a while, right? It's like, here's the mantra that a traditional advisor would have. And I'm simplifying, right? But it's like, hey, when stocks stink, Christy, you go into bonds. When bonds stink, you go into stocks. What about when they both stink at the same time? Then what? Then they don't have the tool. And they both do stink at the same time right now because it's the same fundamentals of inflationary pressures, unsustainable debt, political chaos, and geopolitical conflict that cause those traditional asset classes to come down. All of them. But there's things that you can allocate into that will grow your portfolio, that allow you to thrive and put a smile on your face, even though the freedoms around us are eroding every single day.
And it's really just a hedge as well. I mean, another telltale thing that you hear so many brokers say is, oh, you just need to be diversified. That way, if one of your stocks goes down and another one's doing really good, it'll all balance out in the end. You'll still make a profit. But they never fail to address the market as a whole or the fact that true allocation is allocating across different sectors. You want things in the market, outside of the market. You want tangible assets. You want to play. You can even do oil and gas leases. There's so many different things, and factoring in taxes, that true diversification is actually not having just a bunch of different stocks. It's right. Having different investments in general. So one thing is, I know that you deal with gold, and one thing with that is, I mean, you hear, especially in this conservative media world, which again, I don't even never even consider myself a conservative, but now I'm just like lumped into conservative media because I'm not towing the narrative line. But when you listen to these podcasts, you hear a lot of pitches for gold and silver. Let's just face it, tons of different companies that are really doing that. But there are differences with that as well. Some are dealing with the coins, some are dealing with maybe like pitching to put some of your IRA into a gold backed like exchange traded fund or things like that. So can you kind of explain what the differences are and like things to be careful about?
Yeah. So you kind of opened up a Pandora's box with a lot of questions, right? But
I know, tons of questions. Answer all of them.
We'll just go through them line by line. We'll get through them quickly, though. So number one, not all gold is good. Not all silver is good. Even though it's gold or silver, you've got a whole universe of options, right? You can do old coins, new coins. That's stuff from different countries, stuff that's graded, some that's collectible, some that's kind of collectible, right? It's like some that's super rare, like a shipwreck, and it's Jack Sparrow's, hoard, and there's only 4 of them in the whole world, right? It's like you hear all of this stuff. And then on silver, you've got coins that were meant for circulation, like dimes and quarters. You've got 1,000-ounce bars, and you've got proof silver eagles and commemorative stuff that you see on HSN. It's like, oh, What? There's so many options. Well, I would say in all of that, I can boil it down to 5 things that make sense. In silver, and it all boils down to this one concept: to grow your wealth, get as many ounces as you can for your invested dollar, and 2, be in the right place at the right time, right? Just because I'm saying gold and silver are amazing for right now doesn't mean that they're always going to be great, right? But probably because of these economic dynamics of the world that we're living in, next 3 to 5 years easily, it's going to be the best performing asset class that there is. So on silver, 1,000-ounce bars, 100-ounce bars, 10-ounce bars, or 1-ounce refinery rounds, only options you should look at. And on gold, I wouldn't even do a gold eagle. I would just do a 1-ounce gold bar. So why? The premiums are ultra low. You can maximize your ounces for the amount you put into it. Now, when you see stories and you'll hear all kinds of stuff, well, it's dealer non-reportable, it's non-confiscatable, it's rare, you're going to get a double play on your investment. They haven't been minted since the 1940s. All garbage, in my opinion, right? And I've got a PhD in this stuff, right? And I've been doing this for 29 years. The reason why those are liked is if you're a collector, then collect them. Collecting and investing are 2 different things. An investor, you want to ultimately make a profit. You're going to buy and sell at some point. A collector would be like your grandma's spoon or thimble collection hanging on the wall. You're never going to get rid of it. You don't care if it goes up or down, right? It's got sentimental value. So as investors, we should never be collectors. Now, with that being said, when you invest, you want to buy low and sell high. You have to have a low commission, low premium type of a thing to actually recover from. So even things like silver eagles, right, that you think are just bullion coins, they should be cheap, they're government mint, they're current market day, well, they're selling for a premium somewhere sometimes 60 to 70% over spot price. Okay, that's too expensive, right? When you can get a 1-ounce silver round for probably 20+% over spot. Like, where does that extra 30 or 40% go to? It evaporates. You really don't get that back over time. But people selling them sure make a nice commission off of it, right? So this is just my philosophy, right? Other companies have a different philosophy. They play the game of, we're going to get a double play, rarity, scarcity, that premiums are going to go up. I haven't seen that happen in 29 years. If it worked, I would do it, right? It makes sense for the investor, but it doesn't. And I care about my investors making a profit, right? So of all the different things that you see out there, you have to go into low premium bullion bars or coins or 1-ounce gold bars, right? So that's the story between gold and silver. Now, ETFs, mining shares, mutual funds, things that your advisor would say, hey, I hear you want to invest into gold and silver. Here, we don't offer physical gold and silver, but we can get you an ETF that tracks it. Not the same, right? Because remember when Lehman Brothers went out of business? Well, what if you had that stuff? It's like, where is it? Mm-hmm. Well, can you take delivery of it? Is it real? Probably not. So if you want to invest in gold or silver, invest in gold or silver, not paper. If you want to invest in paper, you're not investing in gold or silver. It's as easy as that, right? So we're talking about physical gold and silver coins and bars. Now, also, not all dealers are created equal as well. You've got some that focus on the rare coins, but most dealers in the industry will operate like a transactional broker, like a real estate agent, for example. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's the way that they do business, right? It's like they'll make a commission when you buy, a commission when you sell, and they forget about you in between. This is another place where we're different, is ultimately you're going to sell and lock in your profits because we're dealing with investments, right? Not collectibles. So we charge 0 when people liquidate. We don't charge anything for fees for assets under management, like a registered investment advisor, 1% a year to manage your portfolio, whatever. We don't charge for that. And when you purchase metals, it's an 8% cost of ownership, right? So that's it. So really, how long does it take for you to break even on your investment? Well, if all you pay is 8%, it doesn't take very long in a world where over the last 15 weeks at the time of this show, silver's up 20.6% in the last 15 weeks. Okay, it doesn't take you very long to recover 8%, right?
Right.
So you have to take everything into perspective. deal with somebody that you trust, right? That's your retirement. Just don't listen to stories of rare stuff, of historical stuff, of double plays. It really, bottom line, low cost acquisition, get bullion, maximize your ounces by minimizing your cost, be in the right place at the right time. And this is where that relationship piece we thrive. Because to me, Christy, the life happens in between the bookends of those transactions, right? It's like the transactions are the necessary evil. You have to buy to get into a trend, you sell to get out of one, but life happens in between. So we'll hold your hand through the economy, let you know when it's time to buy, sell, reallocate, get out of Dodge, do whatever needs to be done to lock in your profits, be in the right place at the right time the majority of the time.
Here's a question. How do we know if the gold we get is real? Like, I mean, you can say like you want to get physical gold, but
yeah,
obviously you're not the one holding it. So how can you?
So my firm deals directly with the depositories, the COMEX depositories, just for that specific question, right? Because, if you're dealing with a local mom and pop coin shop, right, or eBay or something like that, well, who knows? Do they have the kind of testing equipment necessary to validate if it's real or not, or if it's counterfeit or fake? I kind of doubt it. I mean, I don't. I have no idea, but I don't have to, because I directly drop ship from the depository. So if it's coming from there, we've never had an issue of counterfeit stuff in North America or Western Europe. So if it's coming from the depository, it's going to be,
Going to be real,
guaranteed, right? But here's the thing. When a client liquidates, what do I do? Because I don't want to take an inventory, because let's just say it was my client and I said, well, send it back to me and we'll take care of it. Well, what if they sent me something that I didn't sell them, right? And it's like, so you don't know. So they send it directly back to the depository. When it gets there, we wire them the funds, because they have the testing equipment to verify that it's always guaranteed. Even if you have a firm, like a national firm, that's shipping you from the depository, but they take an inventory in from clients that they sell, there's really no way to guarantee that, Christy. I mean, there's just not, without all kinds of testing equipment and everything. I mean, it can be done, but it takes a long time. So therefore, simplify. Just deal directly with the depository, and that helps answer that question of where your gold or silver is real.
Right. Clearly you're able to provide this service for people, but you are people over profits. So really, I want to continue to have these conversations with you, because you have the expertise to at least weigh in whether it benefits you or not, with your PhD. Wanted to get back to that though. You said you were interested in getting a PhD, and why not get a couple, with like theology and everything else. One thing that was funny is when someone was describing to me who you are, they're like, yeah, he has PhDs, but like I think he rides motorcycles and might even have tattoos. Like,
all of the above. Yes, I do have tattoos.
So it's just funny how we make those associations, right? And you said yourself, you're like, I wanted to achieve this, and it took me a long time, but I wanted to be one that wasn't a nerd. So I found that funny. Also, I find it really interesting that you have the theology background, because you wouldn't think so, but the Bible has a lot of great sound financial advice. I just remember my mom, when she got into the financial field, because she had been a registered nurse, and my dad had been in the financial field for a long time, and she finally decided he wanted to be able to focus more on insurance products and like things like equity index annuities, things like that. And he was like, well, maybe you should get your licenses and you can manage the stock angle of thing. And as she was learning and getting good at that, she's like, the Bible says, she's like, I think women are better at this, because the Bible says, she sees a field and buys it, and so
right.
she's making this case that like women are better at like making these decisions. That's neither here nor there, but it is interesting how it can all go together.
Well, it can. And I love that story, because women's intuition is a real thing, right? It's like, ask my wife, it's a real thing, right? So and it's wild. My CEO is a woman, my chief operating officer is a woman. Like 70% of the people that work here are women. Not necessarily by design, it just worked out that way, but But really, what do we have? It's like the mother's touch, right? It's like this, we're very relationship oriented type of a company. And, it just is this great mix of book knowledge, of people knowledge, right? How to hear what people's dreams, aspirations, fears, goals, everything are, right? And then we craft a strategy to navigate through this mess that we're living in this economy. We don't have to sensationalize, Christy, how bad it is. It's bad, right? When people's wages are coming down, inflation is going up, taxes are going up, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, or Meta, or whatever their Facebook's name is now, and they're all laying off by the tens of thousands of people. Salesforce laid off 10% of its workforce. Bed Bath & Beyond is probably filing for Chapter 11. Goldman Sachs laid off 3,500 people. Wells Fargo shut down their mortgage division. Don't believe the State of the Union address that says, lowest unemployment in 50 years. Are you kidding me? No way. Because Trump and Reagan were both, in the last 50 years, they had vibrant economies. This is not one of them. And then when you hear the lie, well, inflation is coming down and wages are going up. Wait a second, flip that around. Then it's true. Wages are coming down, inflation is going up. Even the Bureau of Labor Statistics yesterday morning said, inflation went up 0.5% in the last 30 days. This is pretty tough, right? We're probably going to have to start raising rates more than what we have. It's like, come on. When Biden challenges people watching the State of the Union to fact check Trump, fact check him, right? Because the lies on the economy are not there. But here, let me expose one of those lies and tell you how they can actually sort of justify it, right? So the unemployment numbers, for example. Let's say, Christy, that you don't have a job, you're unemployed, and you're hitting the streets and you're pounding the sidewalks and knocking on doors and saying, please hire me, please, anybody? Well, you go on for a few months and nobody's hiring you and you get so discouraged. You say, I'm just going to quit. I'm going to stop looking for a job and go live under a bridge. Okay. Did you find a job? No. So you're not employed yet, right? No, you're still unemployed. But because it was your own decision, voluntary, to stop looking, they don't count you anymore in the numbers. Say, you're no longer on the unemployment numbers because you voluntarily stopped looking. Well, but you're still unemployed. Or how about this? How about you were one of the software engineers at Microsoft making $180,000 a year, and you lost your job because they just laid off 12,000 people. Well, you're looking for a job. It's like, I can't find another software engineer job. But I still have a family to feed, right? So you go to the mall and you get a job at Kohl's part-time. Well, that's not cutting it. So you go to Chick-fil-A and get another part-time job. Well, then, I don't know, you go to some other store and you get a third part-time job making half as much as you used to, but working more than you ever did because you left a high-paying job, 3 part-time small-paying jobs. And what is the labor numbers tell us? It's like, we lost 1, gained 3, that's a +2. They would say
that sounds exactly like me. I left my long news career and now as an independent journalist, I do this and then I do independent weird side jobs just to get by. And so I'm working twice as hard, but making less, because of it. And so, on paper, oh, wow, she's got like 3 or 4 jobs now. Not really.
Well, but in reality, you don't, right? But yet you do. And so the Bureau of Labor Statistics says, oh yeah, you do, because it helps their numbers, right? They actually created 3 jobs because of you. Right. So it's like, oh boy, this is insanity. But that's how he can get away with the lie. But the reality, the economic numbers, the fundamentals behind it are completely not true. Right. And so, but we're not here to dissect the State of the Union. We're here to
take forever.
Because you never end. But we're here to actually expose the problems in the economy, how it's a low growth economy, low revenue generating economy, high inflation, high taxation, rising interest rate economy. That puts downward pressure on stocks and bonds, but it causes the opposite effect on gold and silver. Gold and silver go up during those times. So here's where we, as wise and prudent investors, look at that and say, okay, I'm not gonna settle for surviving when I can thrive. You just have to take that first leap of faith, that step, say, My normalcy bias, I've always been in stocks and bonds, mutual funds my whole life. But man, they're stinking it right now. They're stinking it up. So you just get out and go into something that's growing, protect and preserve and grow based on the fundamentals that cause growth or the fundamentals that cause shrinkage. General rule of thumb, something's coming down, get out as soon as you can. If something's going up, get in as soon as you can. That's how you can thrive in this economy that we're living in.
Yeah, and we're going to need to stay connected on this because it can be change. I mean, everything's changing so quickly. And so we're going to need to continually review and examine what's going on. And that's a big part of this too, is if you want to be a really good advisor or a good investor, is just having a great understanding of what's happening globally and what's coming down the pike. And that helps you make the most informed decisions. So we're actually going to be talking like on a more weekly basis and examining what's going on with the economy and figuring out what we can glean from it. But this was more of just an introduction for all of you. So again, if you want to start dipping your toe in there, you can go to kirkelliottphd.com/KL. Christy Lee. That's what that stands for. kirkelliottphd.com/KL and get more information. Any final thoughts or words?
I just noticed your lower thirds there. Elliot has 2 T's or they won't find it.
Oh,
So
2 T's. Thank
yep,
you. Let me
Kirk
fix
Elliot with 2 L's and 2 T's, PhD.
Oh man, I'm gonna have and I was even thinking that when I'm like, I kept on looking at it, like, did I spell that right? And then of course I didn't, but it was kind of a last minute thing that I was trying to do and failed
That's all good.
But you know what? The good thing about it is I always do like an upload version, so I'll just cover it.
That's awesome.
With the right one. I don't even know who all is watching live right now anyways, because I'm so suppressed on all these platforms. So when I get this uploaded to my other websites, which hopefully you guys will follow, subscribe on Locals. That really helps me keep doing what I'm doing. So ChristyLeeTV.locals.com. Check out my Rumble. You can find it if you search Christy Lee TV or KLIM.news, KLIM.news. And I will have an uploaded version later, so you can get that right and find Kirk Elliot, PhD.com.
So final words, right? You asked me, it's like, what do you think? So here's the thing. Don't be paralyzed with fear. That's not how we were created. It just takes a leap of faith, so for people who are watching this and say, I got to talk to Dr. Kirk, right? Here's the process. It's simple. You either go to that website, fill out the little form. One of my schedulers will call you, or you call us and they'll call you, talk to you directly, right? And they'll ask you some questions. What is it that caused you to want to reach out? What are you trying to protect? We'll get you set up with myself or one of my advisors. We'll walk you through it, map out a strategy for success, move the assets, whether it's an IRA, a non-IRA, brokerage account, cash account, all of the above that we can do. My team handles all of it except filling out those little forms because we want to make the transition easy and the burden light, right? That's our goal. But the key is a lot of people don't do stuff because they're afraid. They've never done it before. I'd be afraid if I haven't done something before either, right? That's always the first step. It's like, I'm not going to go cliff diving because I'm afraid. Well, you go cliff diving, it's like, that wasn't so bad. It was like 4 seconds of an adrenaline rush. That was awesome, right? So, but you never know until you actually just call and just watch what my team is going to do for you. This is no joke. People that call in with fear, you can hear it, you can feel it, you can feel the energy over the phone. Their voices are shaking. After they talk to us, they realize, oh my word, they share the same faith, they share the same political worldview, the same ideology. They're not listening to mainstream media news. Right? They actually have a solution. That fear starts to melt away, Christy. It's wild and it's amazing. And you can then hear a smile. It's the most beautiful thing when you can hear a smile over the phone. And that's what happens when people call in. And I'm just blessed to actually be able to do that and bring that into people's lives and get their finances to safe ground. So take that leap of faith and call, and don't let grip fear you to inaction or to make the wrong decision.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully you all enjoyed the introduction to Dr. Kirk Elliot, and we'll check back in with him next week because who knows what will be going on then. Thank you for being on with me.
You bet.